Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 RBC Heritage Initial Research Show. Don't mind the background. I've been playing with some camera settings over the weekend and just kind of got caught up and realized that I needed to go live. Didn't want to reset everything. Hope your Masters weekend went a whole lot better than mine. I was a fan. I enjoyed watching, but took an absolute beating, especially in DFS. Not a lot went right for me. So hopefully you had a better weekend than I did in that regard. A couple of announcements here. So the week of the Mexico Open, the last week of May, the schedule will change for that week only, as it'll be a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday pattern for the shows, as Wednesday morning I am leaving for a golf trip, a vacation, if you will. Granted, I'm swinging the club. I'm not golfing. I'm there more for comedy relief, but I will be away starting Wednesday morning. So make sure you set your reminders for the last week of, I said May, last week of April. It will be a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday pattern for that week. The second announcement that, and the reason why I've been kind of playing with some camera settings and why the background is what it is, I am going to start doing some new content. The baseball season has started, so the week when I come back from the golf vacation, so the first week of May, I will start doing some baseball content around DFS and DraftKings and whatnot. I'm looking forward to it. I've been a baseball fan and player all my life. Still play baseball, so it should be fun. I'll have both the golf and the baseball going at the same time. So a lot on my plate, but I'm going to enjoy it. I hope you all join me in both regards, baseball and golf. So with that out of the way, let's get the intro going, and then we'll dig into the heritage. So all statistics tonight are provided by fantasynational.com. It's an amazing resource. It's well worth your investment. If you are a member there, you don't have to listen to an idiot like me and give you the wrong advice for the Masters. You can go do your own research and therefore pick a whole lot of Scotty Scheffler, pick a whole lot of Cameron Smith, and win, like I did not. In the descriptions of the Twitch and YouTube videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I place my betting cards and any interesting research that I had or that I find throughout the week leading up to the tournament. And I usually try to pose a question or an interesting nugget during the week. So if you want to see what research I find this week, make sure you give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then finally, we are live. Chat is open. I want to hear from you all. Did you all have a lot of Scotty Scheffler? Did you have a lot of Cam Smith? Sung J M until today, the last 9 of today. I was pretty high on Sung J, so that was a good thing. Hopefully you listened on that. Did you listen to me about Shane Lowry and kind of avoid him when you shouldn't have? Because that's what I did. So I just want to hear from you all. How was your Masters weekend? And everything in between. So without any further delay, let's dig in and do our initial research for the 2022 RBC Heritage. And we come over here to the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, and you don't have to worry about that buzzing in the background of the camera settings here. Let me bring up chat. Hopefully we are still going, as I looked like I was getting a little overloaded there. So the RBC Heritage is this week. It's traditionally the week after the Masters. We are in Hilton Head, South Carolina at the Harbortown Golf Links, most famous for the lighthouse behind the 18th green, or at least in the distance. It is a Pete Dye design, so we're going to be looking at quite a few architect filters this week, since Fantasy National has Pete Dye courses in there. It is a par 71, and to be fair, I really feel like the course has been lengthened a little bit. I remember it being a whole lot closer to the low 7,000s, not 7,100. But the tournament fact sheet is listing it just over 7,100 yards at 7,121. The stimp is 11.5, and the speeds have varied between average and fast. They are certainly not like Augusta National. They can run slower, but they can be fast as well. When we get into the historic conditions, there's a fair amount of both, so I don't think we're going to be focusing too much on the speed filter of Bermuda Greens. As you'll see, we are on Bermuda overseeded with POA. But yeah, so generally average or fast Bermuda Greens. The greens are very small, rivaling Pebble Beach. I believe these are a tad bit larger than Pebble Beach, but not by much. So these are the second or third smallest average green sizes on tour. Not a lot of rough and not a lot of bunkers. It is just a very compact, narrow golf course. And it is a very traditional Pete Dye design in which a lot of times it might be better to be in the left rough than the right fairway due to angles and eye lines and whatnot. Pete Dye always known for that. So a very compact, very narrow course here at Harbor Town. Water is in play on every single hole, and we will see that that is a big factor as distance does not matter. It's more of a positional type course, but we'll get into that. I mentioned that we are on Bermuda Greens. It is overseeded with POA. POA Trivialis to be exact, so it does play true to Bermuda. The fairways, the rough, everything else is Rye overseed. Let's see. The course was overseeded. It was Bermuda when the tournament was held in June of 2020, so it's been overseeded this year. There's some new tees. December temperatures were above average, but there were a ton of frosts early in the year apparently, and rainfall has been below average. So that might lead to the greens being maybe perhaps a bit faster. I would have no direct information on that. That's speculation. But the biggest takeaways for Harbor Town, you've got a Pete Dye design. It is short. I feel like this has been lengthened a little bit over the years, but it is still technically a short course by Fantasy National standards, under 7,200 yards. Bermuda Greens, very small Bermuda Greens. Not a lot of rough, not a lot of bunkers, just a whole bunch of water in play. In fact, every hole has water in play. So that's what you need to know about Harbor Town from a course setup GCSAA look. So let's go ahead and move to Fantasy National. This is the main page here for Fantasy National. And let's go ahead and limit this to the 2022 season, last 6 months, and the usual here. So with the Masters having just been completed a couple hours ago, obviously we don't have those stats in here. But of the players that are in the field this week at the RBC Heritage, since the start of the 2022 season, your top strokes gained total players are Justin Thomas, Cameron Smith, Russell Henley, Matt Fitzpatrick, Patrick Cantlay, Tom Hoge, Billy Horschel, Cameron Young, Daniel Berger, Sung Jae, and Joaquin Niemann. So a lot of these very successful performances at the Masters. Cameron Smith, a terrible 12th and I think 13th, notwithstanding, had a fantastic Masters. Fitzpatrick, top 15. Cantlay made the cut. Hoge made the cut. Billy Horschel made the cut. Berger made the cut. Sung Jae a top 5, maybe a top 6. And then Niemann, your first round leader. And if you watched a lot of last week, I was very high on Niemann. I felt like a genius after Thursday, and then it all went to shit. But most of these guys had a really darn good Masters weekend. So not a lot, I bet, changes in terms of strokes gained total. Just you can see that these are the players that have been playing the best through the season so far. I mean, Luke List here, just outside the top 10, has the win at the Farmers. Sung Jae, the win in the fall. Cameron Smith has 2 wins. Justin Thomas has been knocking on the door seemingly every tournament. So there is a look at your top performers throughout the PGA Tour season coming into this tournament. Masters data not included. But we had the tab up. Let's go ahead and move to the course breakdown. And the first thing I like to do in the course breakdown, I try to find the 9th and the 10th most difficult holes, see what they play to. So the 9th and the 10th average just a bit over par. So that tells you that this course is a little bit on the difficult side. Certainly nothing to the extreme, say an Arnold Palmer or a Masters. It is certainly average in terms of difficulty, but a bit on the more difficult side. But that's not to say that you can't get some low scores here. I mean, you got a 3% eagle rate on the very short par 5 second, a 2% eagle rate on the par 5 fifth, and those do yield birdies a fair amount of time. But because of the amount of water in play, I mean, there are a lot of holes that can come up and bite you if you're not careful. 2/10 over par here, the long par for 8th. A little bit over 2/10 here, the very difficult par 3 14th. So pars here are pretty good scores, minus on the 2 very easy par 5s. There are only 3 par 5s. Again, this is the par 71. So the par 5 on the back, pretty long at 588, is not really a great birdie chance, and it's certainly not an eagle chance. Now, you do get a birdie 1 every 4, so it's not like a par is a great score on that hole. But again, just speaking to the difficult side of average that this course is, not every par 5 is gettable, to be fair, to be honest. So there is a look at the scorecard. A lot of the length, what length this course does have, is in the par 3s. You got 200, you got 195, 192, and 196. So if you see a pattern there, you'll see, especially graphically, the par 3s of the length are very, very important. You do have one very long par 5. You have a couple of longer par 4s. You've got a 470, 473. But generally the par 4s are fairly short. The par 3s are where the length is on this course. It is a positional style golf course. Generally speaking, the players who excel with irons, think of your Webb Simpsons, your Kevin Kisners, your CT Pans, those style of players that can't compete when length is a big factor, are generally up near the top of the leaderboard here at Harbour Town. So again, there's a look at the scorecard. Strokes gained by shot type. Probably no surprise that approach outweighs the putting, although it is very, very close. And then around the green and off the tee, this is a short game preferred course, just because, like I said, distance does not matter. So that's for the top 10s. As you move to the top 5s, the approaches start to gain a bit of steam on the putting. The around the green is higher than the off the tee, and winners, you'll really see that the approach starts to really take off. So one of the big, things that I got wrong or didn't do this past week of the Masters, since we didn't have the strokes gained off the tee, approach, putting numbers, I went ahead and went specifically on filtered down stats, say bogeys on difficult, the lengths of the par 4s and whatnot. I didn't have any strokes gained approach, and that was an error. That was just an error. I think my rankings probably would have changed a bit had I use strokes gained approach since Augusta just demands great iron play. But that's last week. We're on to Harbour Town, so definitely going to be looking at strokes gained approach. Probably be looking a little bit of strokes gained around the green, especially since it outweighs off the tee consistently as you go from top 10 to top 5 to winners. I will have to check and see if a hot putter or a good Bermuda putter is mandatory. I generally do that on Monday afternoons leading into the data dive. The past couple of tournaments, putting form has not been mandatory, like the Masters. Hideki last year did not come into the Masters with good putting form. Corey Connors and Connors was at the Valero. Valero didn't require great putting form coming in. Danny Willett, I don't believe, was a good putter. No, Sergio 2017 at the Masters did not have a good putter, or at least good putting form coming in. So I'll have to see if putting form is a factor leading into the RBC Heritage. But we're definitely going to be looking at approach, probably some around the green metrics, and then, like I mentioned, we'll have to be looking at, or I'll be looking at putting form coming in for tomorrow's data dive show. I'm going to come back into the top 10s. Average strokes gained by hole by par. You see here par 5s and then the 4s and the 3s, but they're all pretty darn close. You notice that this is only 0.05 difference on this y-axis here. Par 5s are the only ones that are above 0.15. So it looks like they're a lot more important. They're really not, just based on the y-axis. Then you move into the top 5s. They really start to gain a whole lot of steam here, especially the par 5s. Par 4s and par 3s are still somewhat equitable in terms of the distance they were from each other in the winners, from the top 10, but then you move to the winners. Par 3s really start getting left behind par 5s and par 4s. In fact, there is really only one length of par 3, and we'll get into that. But the par 5s are, just like any other course, your main strokes gained contributor here at Harbour Town. And I believe I have found a par 4 length that we'll focus on. But there is a look at the graphical view of strokes gained by hole by par for your top 10s, your top 5s, and your winners. Hole composition, I've alluded to it a couple times. There are 3 that fall from 175 to 200, and there's one that says 200 to 225. Well, I'm going to come up here and remind you that the 200 to 225 was 200. Now, it will play longer than 200. Some of these will play longer than 200 when they move tee boxes around, pin placements, and all that stuff. There's 200, 195, 192, and 196. But 3 of the 4 on the scorecard measured here. This one's right on 200. I am pretty darn confident, and the data shows it as well when I did some research over the weekend, that this length of par 3 is the be-all, end-all here at Harbour Town in terms of par 3s and par 3 importance. So we're definitely going to be looking at par 3s from 175 to 200 heavily this week when we're looking at par 3s. Par 4 composition, you do have a quote drivable one, 0 to 350. Let me look and see what hole it is. I don't remember. Oh, the 9th. Yeah, it is. It can be drivable. I wouldn't say it's drivable for a lot of people, but it can be. So you got the drivable par 4 9th. Then you got a very short par 4. You got 5 from 400 to 450 and 4 from 450 to 500. So again, we'll see if there is a length of par 4 that predicates itself to high leaderboard success, whether it's one of these two or if it's just straight strokes gained par 4. Then finally, the par 5s measure from 500 to 600, 2 below 550, 1 above 550. So there is a look at the course composition chart. The approach shot distribution, it looks to show that the majority of approach shots here at Harbour Town come from 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. And 175 to 200 being so much more common here than the average tour event. It's about, what's that, a little over 7% more common here at Harbor Town than the average tour event, while 150 to 175, while still above the average tour event, is only about almost 3% more common. And that just speaks to the strategy of the golf course. It is a short golf course, but still you have more approach shots coming from 175 to 200. That's positioning off the tee. And it's just a strategic golf course, especially off the tee. It's what a lot of people consider an A to B golf course. Requires a lot of precision, a lot of solid numbers that you're comfortable with. Especially these greens are so small. You just have to be really dialed in with these sets of clubs, the short to mid irons, essentially. Historic cut line has been above par for the majority of the 2010s. Now, starting in 2019, 2020, even 2018, started to really come down. You had plus ones, evens. The past 2 years, it's been under par, -3 and -2. -3 and -1. I tend to think that this course is starting to become easier than it is all in the the early 2010s, late 2000s. But I still think the cut line would probably be around even par, maybe +1 if I had to take a guess this week. But looking at some of the names in the field, who knows, maybe it is going to be under par if indeed a lot of the big name players stay committed to the RBC heritage. Players like Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, these players that had really good Sundays at the Masters, or even just made the cut at the Masters. Scoring distribution, you see here quite a few more birdies and bogeys, 18% to 15%, but there is a 2% for doubles. So really, birdies is about 1% more than the bogeys and doubles. So this is speaking to probably the course getting a bit easier as of late. It's about average. It's an average difficulty course. It's the best I can sum it up for you. Speaking to the strategic nature of the course, driving accuracy is much higher here. Mentioned it, water in play on every single hole, so you have to find the fairways or play away from the water. That's why I said sometimes it's better to be in the opposite side rough than it is the fairway of that, the other side or whatnot. So driving accuracy much higher here than the average tour event. Speaking to some of the difficulty of the course, but also the tiny greens, green in regulation percentage here, very minimal, especially compared to the average tour event. This is below 60% here. This might be some of the hardest greens to hit in regulation, only at a little less than 58%. So a drastic drop from the average tour event. And then scrambling percentage much higher here. Average 3 putts per round. This was something that I was really, I really felt pretty good about going into the Masters, and we saw it, that 3 putts were so key there. That's why I had 5% in it in my final mixed condition model for the Masters. Not an issue at all this week. Tiny greens, they're not lightning fast. 3 putts won't be an issue, so we're not going to be focusing on it here. Driving distance, speaking to the higher accuracy, much shorter off the tee. It will not be surprising to see guys hit irons, maybe driving irons, get put in the bag this week instead of fairway metals. Not a lot of drivers at all on this course, maybe on the par 5s. But distance is not a factor here at all. And thanks to the tiny greens, the proximity to the hole when you are green in regulation is shorter than the average tour event. 27 feet here, 29 feet at the average tour event. So there's a look at the course breakdown on Fantasy National. I'm going to leave that tab open just in case we want to refer back to it. But here are the historic conditions here at Harbor Town. You see all last year, played to average. You have Bermuda Greens all consistently throughout. The rough has always been short. The green speeds, as you'll see, fast, average, fast, and then, I mean, they're pretty consistently alternating between years, except as you go further back, as in the early 2010s, they were all average, I believe. But it has always been a short course. Of course, Pete Dye designed. The wind can pick up here, so it'll be interesting to see what the wind looks like. I'll take a look at it tomorrow during my research as I'm doing the putting, and see if that's something we need to look at tomorrow on the Data Dive show if the wind really starts to pick up. But you can see here, scoring relative par, I mean, average. 2020 was pretty easy, but it's played average to difficult mostly. We saw this in the graph when with the cut line. A lot of the cut lines have been over par, but lately it is starting to get easier. 2020, all average in 2021, so it is getting a little easier. Bermuda, always short rough. It's always, or at least early on in the 2010s, it was average speed. Then it started, fast in 2017, fast in 2019, fast last year. So they're starting to get between average and fast. This is why I don't think I'm going to put a speed filter on the Bermuda Greens. Probably just look at Bermuda Greens, considering they have been playing, or they've been waffling back and forth between average and fast. And then finally, let's take a look at the tournament history and sort by strokes gained total. So of the players in the field this week, going back to 2017, your strokes gained total top performer here at Harbor Town is Webb Simpson. He won in 2020. He has made the cut all 5 years. No finish worse than tied for 16th. Loves this course. You think Harbor Town, you think of players like Webb Simpson, like Matt Kucher, Kisner down here. Although he's missed the cut the past couple of years, this used to be a course where he thrived. Players of that ilk. So Webb Simpson, very good here. Matt Kucher, 5 for 5. One middling finish and 4 solid ones, to be fair. A top 20, runner-up, top 25, and a top 15. Ian Poulter has traditionally played well here as well, 5 for 5. Patrick Cantlay, 3 for 4, did miss the cut last year, but the 3 cuts made all were top 10s, 2 top 5s. DJ, for as much as he is known as a long hitter, he does not get enough credit for being able to play these strategic courses well. He is sponsored by RBC, so he is always, I don't know if he's mandated to come here, but he's generally here thanks to his sponsor, and he's played this course well. 4 for 4, no finish worse than a tied for 28th in the past 5 years. DJ plays this course well. Fitzpatrick, coming off a very good Masters. Berger, Streelman, 3 for 4. Let's see, Shane Lowry, coming off a great Masters, 3 for 4. Griot, 3 for 4. So there's a look. I mentioned C.T. Pan. He was your winner in 2019. Your defending champion is Stuart Sink. 2017 winner, Wesley Bryan. So there's a look at some of the guys that have played this course well in the past. The other end of the spectrum, guys who have not played this course well for whatever reason. Sung Kang, Scott Brown, 0 for 5. Let's see, Chez Reavie, 2 for 4 with a top 30. But a clunker of a made cut and apparently 2 really bad tournaments, because he has a top 30, and yet he's all the way near the bottom of the strokes gained total leaderboard. Andrew Putnam, 0 for 3. Davis Love III, 1 for 4. Interesting to see Mckenzie Hughes. This is supposed to be a short game course. Mckenzie Hughes does not play well here. 3 clunkers of made cuts and a miscut. So that's a little surprising to see. Anabaran Lahiri, 1 for 4, and has not played it well. Wyndham Clark has made the cut all 3 times he's played here, but never a solid finish. Let's see. There's KH Lee struggles. Aaron Wise struggles. Adam Long 0 for 3. Jim Furyk 1 for 5. Kadira, your winner in 2018, has not performed well when he's come back. Surprising to see Danny Willett, a top 20 last year, but 3 missed cuts before that. So there is a look at the players who play well, don't play well at Harbortown. So now that we've gotten a feel, at least for a few of the metrics that we think might be important this week, first thing we always look at, let's look at Bermuda putting. This is filtered since the start of the 2022 season, 36 rounds. Let's narrow that in. Let's see if anyone has a really hot putter coming in. Again, for the reasons I mentioned, I'm not going to add any filter for speed. This is just pure Bermuda green performance since the start of the 2022 season or 24 rounds. Your top performers are Cameron Smith, Martin Traynor, Brian Gay, Kevin Kisner, Terrell Hatton, Chesson Hadley, Scott Stallings, Adam Hadwin, Alex Noren, and Denny McCarthy. Usual names you would expect. I mean, Cameron Smith's been putting the lights out. His win at the Tournament of Champions, definitely on Bermuda. Players, Bermuda. So he's won twice on Bermuda this year. You can see here, number 1 in strokes gained short game. So this figures to be a Cam Smith style course. You got your regular players that you would think high on a rankings leaderboard for putting. You got your Brian Gays, your Kevin Kisners, Terrell Hatton, Alex Noren, Denny McCarthy. Surprising not to see Horschel up here. I keep scrolling. Let's actually see where Billy Horschel is. Okay, 14th. So I just kind of overlooked him. Apparently, there he is. That's why I was confused. Where's Billy Horschel on Bermuda Greens? There he is. He's 14th. So there you go. Usual suspects: Bo Hostler, Brendan Todd. These good performers with the flat stick, especially on Bermuda. So another thing that's going to be a factor this week, I'm going to take off the 2022 season filter. Let's look at Pete Dye. Pete Dye Designs. And let's see. I've got this for the past 6 months. No way that is near enough. Let's see, the last 12 months. Yeah, 18. That's going to have to be enough. This goes back to last year's Heritage. That'll be fine as an overview, and then we'll start narrowing in on it, especially tomorrow on the data dive when we remove the RBC Heritage last year and split that up in the spreadsheet that I do. But your top performers in the past calendar year on Pete Dye Designs. You got Cameron Smith, Corey Connors, Shane Lowry, Abraham Answer, Sung Jae, Harold Varner III, Colin Morikawa, DJ, Russell Henley, and Kevin Streelman. So Cameron Smith, the win at the Players, TPC Sawgrass, a Pete Dye Design, Corey Connors, Sung Jae, Morikawa, DJ. Morikawa's is from the PGA last year at Kiowa. Played that extremely well. DJ has played this course well. He's played Pete Dye Designs well. I mean, the Players Championship top 10. RBC Heritage he plays well. Sung Jae plays Pete Dye Designs well. Last year's Heritage, he did not perform well at the he did play well at the Amex, excuse me. He only had 2 rounds there, the Stadium course and the Stadium course, because you have the Nicklaus Tournament course and the La Quinta Country Club. Sorry, that took me a minute. So Sung Jae plays Pete Dye Designs very well. Answer Lowry. So there's a look at your top performers on Pete Dye Designs. Last thing I think I want to look at from an overview type perspective, at least on this tab, let's look at short courses. And let's see if we have enough data for just the past 6 months. Yeah, looks like we do. So let's see what the 2022 season filter gives us. So these are your top performers the past 24 rounds or going back to the start of the 2022 season. Your top performers on short courses: Tom Hoge, Mackenzie Hughes, Patrick Cantlay, Denny McCarthy, Lonto Griffin, Russell Henley, Troy Merritt, Luke List, J.J. Spaun, and Jordan Spieth. So no surprise to see Hoge, number one, his win, the Pebble Beach, well known for being a short course. Played the Amex well the week before. The Sony, who did not play well. RSM was good in the fall. Zozo. So Tom Hoge has, at least recently, performed very well on short courses. There's Mackenzie Hughes. It was surprising to see him struggle so much at the RBC Heritage historically. He prefers short courses. Cantlay seemingly plays well wherever he goes. Troy Merritt, Luke List, J.J. Spaun, Spieth. I'm looking through this list here, trying to make heads and tails out of it. Let's look at J.J. Spaun. He also had a pretty darn good Masters, to be fair. I think he was top 35 or so. Was not bad at all. So coming in, some very good form. The putting was great at the Valero. Now, he didn't have great form, but we saw that going into the Valero, you didn't need a hot putter. But the irons are dialed in. The short game was good at the Valero. If it's anything like this, he's not going to be good, I would not think, at Harbor Town. Now, the off-the-tee game has been very, very consistent and getting better. This is what you like to see. The irons are just red hot right now. So, all right. Let's see. Griffin Mccarthy. Okay. So, again, no surprise. Hoge, his win at Pebble Beach, played the Amex extremely well the week before. Yeah, so these players that you probably would think. Luke List is a bit surprising. I would think he would much more prefer long courses, but he was okay at the Amex. It looks like RSM, pretty darn good. He missed the cut at the Mayakoba. The Zozo was good. Okay, but I think he much prefers longer courses. But he has played short courses well so far in this 2022 season. All right. There is a look at that. Let's move into a few things here. Fairways and Greens. We can see that the driving distance is not going to matter. Let's actually, now that I'm on this tab, I'm going to bring up last year's leaderboard just to kind of get a feel and a look. Let's look at Fairways and Greens. So let's take a look here and see. We've got quite a few high number of greens in regulation. You would expect that on a course that greens are hard to hit. To be fair, good drives gained as well. There are a lot of high numbers here. Not too much in the sand saves. All right, let's if we sort this is pretty strong here at the top for good drives. Top 10, runner-up, top 10, top 25, winner. Top 15, 2 clunkers. Top 10, 20, and a 5 and a 5. That's pretty strong there for good drives gained. Greens, more of the same, really. Top 10, winner. Clunker, top 5, runner-up. Middling, clunker. So, honestly, it looks like, at least from a 2021 view, good drives gained might actually be a little bit more important than greens. Again, we'll really dig into this tomorrow in the data dive, but at least from a eyeball perspective or eyeball quick glance view of 2021, it was good drives gained. We can look, well, actually, you know what, let's look at par threes because I think it's going to show you exactly what I mean about the importance of the par threes. So you see here all this performance in the strokes gained par three. It's somewhat important, but the numbers here in the different categories. I mean, you had Wesley Bryan and Robbie Shelton at 2, and that was the highest at that range. 200 to 225, you had a 1.3. There's just not a lot of separation here, where the separation is here. That's fairly strong. Top 25, winner, top 10, 2 middlings, runner-up, 15. So all of your strokes gained is basically in this bucket, the 175 to 200. So that's why we are going to be focusing solely on this range of par threes. especially tomorrow. Let's look at proximity. We saw that in the course breakdown that the majority of approach shots come from 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. Let's see if that's a major factor or if that's just a part of the course forcing it and it's not a big indicator. So last year, right off the bat, it looks like 175 to 200 is a major factor. Well, let's sort by prox total. Okay, top 10 runner-up, 15. It's somewhat strong. Russell Henley was very good at prox total, top 10 finish. Let's look at 150 to 175. Yeah, not a lot here. Well, I say not a lot. You come down to like the 5th through 10th players are okay. So Fratelli, Clunker, Tom Hoge, top 25, Robbie Shelton, miscut. Then you have a string of decent finishes here. Top 35s, top 15s, and a runner-up. But then it starts really tailing off. Whereas the 175 to 200, a decent upper end, but you still have some miscuts here. So you're middling, top 15, middling. Winner, runner-up, top 10. So if there is, at least by 2021, and we'll look historically tomorrow in the data dive, but it does look like 175 to 200 could be a factor. Absolutely. Let's see 125 to 150 because you got a lot of green up here, but you can see it's not really that important in the grand scheme of things. You got 3 miscuts in the top 6, 4 in the top 9 or 8, so not really all that important. So again, I'm thinking it's probably the 175 to 200 if I had to take a guess. Let's see, anything else we want to look at? Probably not really, not from a historical thing. So let's come back to this year's field. We saw that good drives gained was seemingly a pretty big factor. Make sure I have no other filters on. Let's expand it to the last 30. Well, I was wanting to. Let's expand it to the last 36 rounds to get a fuller view here. So your top good drives gained players in the past 36 rounds or to the start of the 2022 season if they don't have 36 rounds. There are Russell Knox, Corey Connors, Brian Stewart, Adam Hadwin, Matthew Neesmith, Alex Smalley, Joel Damon, Tom Hoge, Ches Reavie, and J.J. Spawn. All right. Hoge, your winner at a course that demanded good drives gained, Fairways and Greens. Neesmith's always great with the irons. Connors, Knox, great with the irons. Hadwin's a fairway finder. So no surprise here, at least in terms of the names. I think that's going to be it for that tab. We looked at proximity. Again, we'll see tomorrow if this really does bear out or not. But let's look at 175 to 200 just to see. So your top performers on proximity, 175 to 200 yards since the start of the 2022 PGA Tour season. Tom Hoge, Nate Lashley, Adam Hadwin, Luke List, Justin Thomas, Sahith Theegala, Sebastian Munoz, Ricky, Harold Varner, and Henrik Stenson. Okay. Interesting to see Stenson, Ricky. Let's see. How has Ricky fared at this tournament? He was neither at the top or at the bottom. Heritage. So his performance here has not been good. He's only played it once in the past 5 years. It was a miscut. Didn't look like he struggled too mightily. His irons were okay that week. He didn't make a whole lot of putts, but it wasn't a disaster. But he generally has not putt well on these greens. The irons have been hit and miss. The off the tee game was pretty superb in the early 2010s and teens. Has fallen off quite a bit lately. Interesting stuff there. Let's take a look at his approach proximity specifically. See how that 175 to 200 has really been playing. It's trying to load. Come on, Fantasy National. There we go. So 175 to 200. He has actually been pretty good lately from this distance. The Valero notwithstanding. But he has been pretty darn good lately from that distance. So interesting to see. They have not led to high level successes, but then again, those courses might not demand success from that length. So interesting there. Strokes gained. So there's a look at Ricky. Let's see, anybody else that might be a little surprising up here? Tagala, Lashley. All right. And then finally for the Fantasy National portion, let's just take a quick look at par threes from 175 to 200. Your top par three distance of 175 to 200 performers since the start of the 2022 PGA Tour season. Sepp Straka, Adam Svensson, Russell Knox, Alex Noren, Tom Hoge, Lucas Glover, Ryan Brim, Jason Kokrak, Harold Varner, and Matt Kucher. Neiman just outside the top 10. Smith just outside the top 10. All right. So, pretty good stuff there. I'm going to now move on to Microsoft Excel. So, let me switch the focus, make sure chat is up. I just have this spreadsheet up. We'll really take a look tomorrow at the broken out performance by the players, specifically at Harbortown. But this is just a overview of Harbortown in totality. The RBC Heritage, you see here that the off the tee, at least data-wise, looks like it has been much more important than around the green. That is something that we did not see at or on Fantasy National, but we definitely saw how important the strokes gained approach were. We saw that the putting, and especially lately, the past 3 years, the putting's really gained importance. Interesting to see there. Distance, 7.2, not really all that much. And again, if you followed me for any time, this will look similar, but now the higher these numbers are, the more correlating success. Driving distance is a bit different, and we can compare that here in a bit, but approach, important, putting. Let's see, greens were 3.25. See, good drives gained is supposedly one full shot less important than greens, but you had a lot more correlation, at least in terms of finishing with the good drives. Now, where this is probably coming in is that the higher numbers were in the greens in regulation. I saw some 11s, some 9s in the greens in regulation, whereas the good drives were more 6s and 7s. Sorry, I've got an itch. So that's probably where this is getting that taken care of, or where that's the explanation, I should say. But at least finish-wise, it was in the good drive, so that's interesting. We move over to birdies and bogeys. It looks like historically, birdies have been more important than bogeys avoided. So that'll be interesting, especially seeing this number here being an outlier. If we take that out, it drops precipitously. So interesting to see that. And then conversely, this is a pretty low outlier for birdies. So if you take these two low outliers out, the number becomes quite a bit more drastic. Oh, shoot, I did the wrong one. So if you take out, actually it was both in 2019 where bogeys were more important than birdies. Every other year, though, it has been birdies, and by a significant margin. So I always like to look and see if there are possible outliers that change the numbers. So I'm pretty confident that birdies gained is going to be more important this week than bogeys avoided. So if we do take a look at that in the week, or if it ends up in the mixed condition model, it's going to be birdies, not bogeys. We look at par threes. You see here, see how minimal some of these numbers are in terms of the lengths of the par threes. You got a quarter of a shot, 4/100ths of a shot, yet the par threes, 175 to 200, are triple the importance of the others combined. And that's where all of this is coming in. So we're definitely going to be looking at 175 to 200s especially because all of them measure to this range or length on the scorecard. So, yeah, that's where we're going to be looking at par 3 wise. Par 4 we didn't dig into tonight. We will tomorrow. Pretty darn important. It looks like, at least from a data standpoint, 400 to 450 would be the most important, considering it is more than double the next and more than triple the other two. So interesting to see there. It's not to say that these aren't important. They are a little bit, but 400 to 450 much more so. And then par 5s, we have a pretty even split, to be fair. So there are no par 5s that measure to this length on the scorecard. This is when the par 5 second gets moved around. That one measures at 502 on the scorecard. So there's 2 in this bucket, 1 in this bucket. Since they're pretty evenly split, if we look at par 5s, we're going to be doing total. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's look at proximity, especially since we had 2 ranges that had a lot more to look at as opposed to the mixed condition model than the average tour event. So let's see, 75 to 100, no, not a lot here. So you see the huge number here, and if you take out, well, these are 2 outliers really, so I don't like to take out 2. 175 to 200 though that's a pretty big number for that range. So the reason I'm able to say this, I'm going to scroll all the way over. So let's look at this from a course evaluation standpoint. Here is the Heritage. So it says that off the tee is a third of a stroke more important than the average tour event. The strokes gained approach is 3/10. Good drives is actually 7/100 less than the average tour event. Greens and regulation 0.15. So this speaking to why we're going to focus on what we are this week. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah. So the par 3s, 175 to 200, is a half a shot more important here at the RBC Heritage than at the average tour event. That is an extreme level of importance here. Half a shot. The par 4s, quarter of a shot. Again, speaking to the importance, 7/10 at this length of par 4s. So pretty darn important. Then you have par 5s. It's negative a quarter. That's not to say that the par 5s aren't important here. They're just mitigated in terms of importance compared to other tour events. Whereas some places, your entire scoring depends on the par 5s. So they would be weighted a whole lot, like the Byron Nelson. When we get there at the end of April, mid to end of April, the middle to end of May, 7/10 of a shot more important than the average tour event. Par 5s there. The Memorial, 6/10. Let's see, where else was like the Players, the par 5s were very important. The Hondo we saw where it wasn't important, you had to focus on the par 3s there. Genesis the same, or more par 4s of the Genesis. So that's what this big table and spreadsheet is for, comparing what course you're looking at to the others in terms of importance to the average. So when you look here, so you see not a lot in the par 5s, but the reason I came over here for the proximity, 14, this might be some of the biggest in this range. I see the Barbasol, which is an alternate field event, so I'm not putting an asterisk by it, but keep it in mind. So you got a 14.3 here. This might be the highest. At the Sony, this length of approach is very important. Makes a whole lot of sense. It is a strategic point A to point B forced layup course. Yeah. So this is the highest in terms of importance from this range minus the Barbasol. So good to know. Looks like we're going to be on the right track here, focusing at this length of proximity, or this length of approach shot. So that'll be it for tonight, guys. I'm going to bring it back to the detail in case you want to see that. In the comments, let me know, how did your Masters weekend go? I hope you had a lot more success, especially in DFS, than I did. I felt like I had some pretty good calls. I was really high on Neiman. I was really high on Sungjae. Most of the guys that I had, Homa, I was really high on Homa. They just did not play well on the weekend. I had quite a few 6 of 6s get through. They just did not play well on Saturday and Sunday. It happens. None of the lineups that I had 6 of 6 had Scheffler or Smith on it, or Rory, to be fair. So, like I said, hopefully your Masters weekend was better than mine in terms of gambling. How did you watch the Masters? Is it a big deal for you? Did you tune in, or did you kind of leave it out? So just let me know how your weekend went, and then be on the lookout for some announcements regarding DFS for baseball. So if you are a baseball fan, reach out to me or let me know in the comments what you're wanting to see out of that content. So for all the wagers that you had this past week at the Masters, for any of the early wagers you're thinking about making at the Heritage, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.